We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Hello and welcome to Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. On today's action-packed show, we'll be examining the minds and motivations of the progressive movement and how that relates to cultural Marxism, digging deep into Donald Trump's latest announcement on the abortion debate, and a whole lot more. Remember, this show is proudly sponsored by LibertyNation.com, where you can access podcasts, breaking news, analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. If it seems America is on the progressive road, we just have to ask, progressing towards what? Now, that's a question that Liberty Nation senior political analyst, Mr. Tim Donner, also happens to be a longtime host of this here radio show, discussed in a very recent article on the pages of LibertyNation.com called The Progressive Agenda, Destroy America in Order to Save It. It's well worth the read. I recommend you head over there after you've listened to this. Tim, thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure, Mark. Thanks.
So, Tim, we were discussing just before we came online here that the one area where you allow yourself a hint of spiciness, let's call it, a hint of spiciness, is when dissecting the progressive agenda. And I really want to dig into what the progressive mindset really is, but perhaps more specifically, how has it managed to overtake policy positions in what used to be a fairly, let's do a Joe Biden's, what your grandpa's Democratic Party. How's it managed to take over?
The point of demarcation was the George Floyd affair, where progressives realized the opportunity in front of them. The country was in a state of chaos because of what Officer Derek Chauvin had done to George Floyd and put his knee down on his neck, the I can't breathe, and all the riots and the mobs that were set loose after that. What the progressive community, if you want to call it that, the progressive movement saw was an unparalleled opportunity to sow chaos, to sow division, and to push for their vision of essentially, let's cut through the nice language, a culturally Marxist society. I mean, the Black Lives Matter movement, lest we forget, was foisted upon us by who?
Patricia Cullors.
Two women, self-proclaimed, trained Marxists.
Yeah. Trained by who is an important question there, right?
Well, indeed. And how this overtook an entire political party where this mindset, which is far from traditional liberalism, where men can be women, women can be men. Your identity is based strictly on your race. Everybody is either oppressed or an oppressor, created a total balkanization of the society, which is exactly what a Marxist movement would do, is to exploit existing tensions and take them to the max. That's what they did in 2020, when really the tragedy of that was that we were at a moment in time where everybody was ready for a genuine conversation about policing and racism. Everybody was ready, poised. They were listening. And instead of conducting that constructive conversation and trying to get real police reform and associated legislation, what they did was they tore the country apart. They called for defunding the police. They called for the increasing indoctrination in classrooms. But the heart of my piece on LibertyNation.com is the stranglehold they have placed on the institutions, organizations, agencies in and outside the government, which were more than willing to simply in cowardly fashion bend the knee and give millions of dollars to Black Lives Matter, which of course went bankrupt shortly after 2020.
Let's be very clear that that is a protected form of bankruptcy. They still have the mansions.
Yes.
Right. Well, they still have the mansions.
Yes, the self-proclaimed Marxists who headed the movement Patricia Cullors lives in a mansion that I believe, Mark, has been valued at roughly $6 million. Don't quote me on that, but it's
We,
a it's a far more
if the New
expensive.
York if New York Attorney General decided to value it, it's probably about $150 though, right? Let's be fair.
But this is what has led to Letitia
Mm,
James basically promising to and then fulfilling the promise to get Donald Trump, no matter what it took, using an unprecedented application of the law for which there was no injured party. This is what's happened in Georgia with Fani Willis and targeting Trump and then adding, oh, by the way, we'll add 20 other defendants to it. This is what not liberalism, but
mm,
what progressivism has done to this country. And it is toxic and it is something that has to be identified. This is not mainstream liberal democratic politics. And I'll tell you why. Baseline, Mark, these people do not like the Constitution and they would like to get rid of it because it's way too democratic. They
yeah.
accuse Trump of being an autocrat, but what they want to do is take policies that are wildly unpopular and simply voice them on the American people and say, that's it, there's no debate. And if you disagree, you're evil. That's
Yeah.
what the progressive movement has wrought in the United States of America.
So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, Tim, but based on what you're saying, are you suggesting that progressives are actually communists? I think that's a fair
Um,
association.
excuse me, your words, not mine.
Well, let's
Uh,
look at it this way. It's the language
let's
as you,
put it let's
yeah.
put it this way. Here's a safe description. They are unabashed collectivists.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good way to put it. But you talked about how dividing it into oppressors and oppressees, and that is very much straight out of Karl Marx. And then you've
Certainly.
got this idea. I mean, I think part of it is why did the Democratic Party embrace this so quickly and so readily is because why wouldn't they? When it's so easy for many people to say, I'm a victim. That's why my life's not working out. I'm a victim. And there's a party that recognizes that I'm a victim. My agency, take it away. You know, it's giving up. It's
It's giving up.
surrendering.
It's basically saying, and you can understand that human nature would lead a lot of people to the conclusion that they really cannot navigate life on their own.
Yeah.
They need a big brother to make decisions for them, to put enough money in their bank account to survive, to tell them what to eat, where to go, what to wear, everything
Even
like that
who to be.
in the
Mm,
nanny state and what it is acceptable to be and not be, what to believe, what not to believe, and which views are outside the mainstream
yeah.
of the thinking of most everyday Americans. But
Well, that's the key point, isn't it, Tim? It's this whole network has created a postage stamp size set of acceptable opinions. And if you stay within that, you're safe and you're protected. If you venture outside of it, you're demonized, you're ostracized. Actually, that's something I'd like to talk about in our next segment on this. But one more question on this topic, Tim. We discussed that Black Lives Matter basically went bankrupt, special type of bankrupt where they keep the mansions. But
thanks for reminding us of that
I
again.
just thought I'd point that out. That can never be
Yes,
mentioned enough. But
leave the
it's
mansions, take the cannoli.
absolutely there is cookies. No. But
Oh, it's an
DEI,
adaption. Yes. Anyway,
DEI, that's the new
yeah,
BLM, right? The people who
yes,
came up with this concept, they've just shifted into corporate DEI, haven't they?
yes, yes. That's the sort of application of the principle, right?
Mm,
That's weaponizing it for individual organizations, DEI. What they've done here is they put diversity first, which everybody has to agree with and mostly does. And they put inclusion last because, again, that's something nobody's going to say, I don't want inclusion.
mm.
But what they do is they sandwich the real poison pill right in the middle, which is equity.
Yeah.
So the average person looking at it says, well, who could fight the idea of equity? Folks, there's a difference between equality and equity. Equity means that there has to be an authority that steps in to guarantee outcomes for people that self-identify as oppressed by virtue of their race. That's
of course, the other reason is, Tim, that if they had it the other way around, it'd be DIE, and that's just giving the game away for them.
Yes.
We'll be right back with Tim Donner after this short break. Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty